So welcome to our professional project management training. This training is based on the PMBOK 5th edition and is facilitated by me, Ojugo Ajunwa, from Right Track Consulting, Nigeria Limited. So you're welcome. We would do it like this. We'll take on the class and then we'll allow questions towards the end. It will just be for 45 minutes or a bit longer. So we'll do our best to stay on topic and then we'll take it up from there. So you're welcome. Okay. Also, if you want to write, you could bring in your writing materials at this point, and you can put away every distraction so that we can, really concentrate. So this training is part of what we offer clients for the PMP certification exam. That's the Project Management Professional. So where does the PMP certification, which body offers it? It's offered by PMI. PMI stands for the Project Management Institute, and they are based in the US. The PMP certification has been going on for the past, let's say, 40 years or less, and they have various people from all across the globe becoming certified. I think as at last count, they have more than 700,000 certified PMPs in different parts of the world implementing the methodology that the PMI created called the PMBOK guide. So the training overview, you would acquire in-depth knowledge of the project management body of knowledge. That's the PMBOK guide, and currently is in its 5th edition. The 6th edition, which usually comes each edition is edited every 4 years. So the 5th edition has been on, it will be in the 4th year by summer, around June, July, August of 2017. So the 6th edition will come in at that time, and people that will want to write the certification exam at that time will be writing based on the 6th edition. So this training is based on the 5th edition, which is what is still currently being used right now. So the training will help you prepare for the PMP exam, develop project management expertise, and help you fulfill the 35 hours, contact hours that PMI requires you to have to make you eligible to write the certification exam. As part of what we offer, we also have a YouTube channel. It's called Right Track Consulting on YouTube. There you can learn more, have a little bit more background about the PMP certification exam, what the certification benefits are, how to fill your form, to submit to PMI for the exam and all of that. But the scope of this one is the introduction to project management framework. So that's what we're going to concentrate on in the next 40 minutes or less. So this is basically everything, table of contents that we'll do in the 4-day training. You have the project management framework, project integration management, scope management, time, cost, quality, human resource management, communication management, risk management, procurement, and stakeholder management. So PMI has its own curriculum for these courses that you follow through to be able to write that certification exam. So our bonus for attending this course, if you want to attend this course online, we have it as the Project Management Professional Masterclass. And we have an online live class just like we are having now. We have 2 batches for the period. We have December 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd. And then we have January 7th, 8th, 14th, and 15th as the second batch. So it works like this. The duration is 6 hours per day in 2 blocks of 3 hours per class. and this would enable us, cover the curriculum. You also have assignments, you have quizzes, you have tests, and so on. So that's basically how it's going to be structured. If you enroll for the online course this week or next, depending on the date you choose, the cost is $100, and we offer it with a 5% discount. Registration for the first batch closes December 16th, and then the second batch January 4th, respectively. To enroll, after the training today, you can email us with the title Project Management Professional Masterclass, and then we'll send you the details of the class, full details, the login, and all that, so that you can take a look at it. So let us go on. So our first topic is the project management framework. We want to understand the project management environment. Projects happen all the time, in different parts of the world. Every country has projects they run. Every business have projects they run. Even individuals, have projects they run. In fact, recently I heard about Google, they have this strategy of having over 100 projects at any point in time as part of their innovative strategy, because they want to be market leaders. They create several projects to actually help them, meet their own targets, those basic things they had set out to do, and then to take a lot from the market share. You see Google doing things like the self-driving car. You see Google doing several things that are just outside, the search engine and the adverts that they normally do. They have so many projects, so numerous, to mention. So projects are the lifeblood of any business. So project management framework will try to understand that environment that surrounds projects. So let me go ahead. What is a project? A project is not about the size, it's not about, oh, this is, a mega structure, then it's a project. No, projects can, be of any size and any type. It's not about the nature of work. Most people, if you ask the layman, he says a project is a construction site, because that's a classic example of a project. So the project is not about construction. It could be about research. It could be creating a new banking product. It could be creating a new drug, a new vaccine. It could be building a new curriculum for a school, and so on. It's also not about the industry. It could be any industry, from banking to pharmaceutical to educational to healthcare, and so on. It's also not about the duration. Sometimes a project could last for 1 week, sometimes it could be 1 month, then sometimes it could be 1 year or 25 years, depending on, how complex that project is. It's also not about the product or service to be delivered. It's not about the product or service to be delivered. It could be any product. It could be any service. According to PMI, what really is a project? A project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create 3 things. You can note that down in your book. You're either creating a product, a service, or a result. A product, a service, or a result. So a project can create a product that can either be, a component of another item or an end item in itself, or a capability to perform a service. Let me just use the telecoms, as an example. When an MTN, for instance, comes into a country, they don't just start the service. They must have that capability to perform the service of allowing people make and receive phone calls, and things like that. So they need to set up first of all, get a site, set up the site, put up their mast before, and then activate the transmission, and all of that before they can now perform that the end users can perform the service of making phone calls, and things like that. So a result can also be gotten from a project. Like, let's take, for instance, the popular Zika virus. For World Health Organization or any other organization that wants to create a vaccine to, reduce the occurrence of the Zika virus in pregnant women, they would go through a lot of research process, test the drugs on people, several things. So projects can create products, maybe a new car, a capability to perform a service, maybe with the telecoms, a result, a successful Zika virus vaccine, and so on. So that's basically what a project is, and we said, according to PMI, it's a temporary endeavor. You want to create it because you want to create either a product, a service, or a result. Examples of projects: developing a new product or service, effecting a change in the structure, staffing, or style of an organization, developing or acquiring a new or modified information system. I remember my time back when I worked in several bank projects to implement a new human resource management software for them. It took a whole lot. In fact, it was a major project. It lasted for 18 months, where we had to make sure payroll runs, benefits run, and so on. Constructing a building or infrastructure, like I said earlier, that's a classic example of a project. An NGO creating infrastructure projects in developing countries, maybe like maybe a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation coming in to create, projects for us that could help people go to school by creating schools, hospitals, access to health, and so on. So all of these are examples of projects, and of course the list is not endless. So what is project management? Project management is application of knowledge. You can write that down. Skills, tools and techniques. You're applying knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. Before you start, there must be requirements that stakeholders have talked about, and you need to gather, you must have the knowledge, the skills, you must have the tools, the techniques, then you apply it to project activities to deliver on them. So that's basically what project management is all about. So project managers are the ones applying this knowledge, these skills, these tools, these techniques. And project management is also all about documentation. You want to make sure your documentation is right. You want to make sure you're communicating to your stakeholders and so on. So project management is accomplished through appropriate application and integration of 47 logically grouped project management processes, within the 5 process groups. We'll see what the 5 process groups are. The 47 processes we would see from day 1 of the course, till we get to the end. That's basically how it's structured. So basically, if you want to manage a project, you need to identify what will this project require? What do I need? What type of resources do I need? What type of infrastructure do I need? And so on. Then you must determine realistic goals. Someone has said goals must be SMART. That's an acronym that stands for specific. Your goals must be very specific. It must be measurable. It must be achievable, not something, that you cannot really achieve. It must be realistic, and then it must be time-bound. It must be time-bound. The time element is so important for projects because, projects must be accomplished within, a specific time period. Then you must manage your project constraints. We'll talk about that in a bit. Adapt various plans as needed to achieve the goals of the project and stakeholders. Project management starts with you selecting suitable processes, You know, we've said 47 processes, but you want to select the suitable one in case it's a small project, you know, so that you can still complete the work of the project on time. Then in addition, it can involve using an established methodology, just a method, you know, a method to the madness of managing your project, a method that can be like a checklist, you know, so that all the time, even if someone new comes into the organization, use that method to manage how you deliver your projects, you know, all the time. So basically, there are 5 process groups. You know, we talked about that in the last slide. You have initiation, you can write that down, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and then closing. So basically, these are the 5 key process groups we'll talk about from beginning till the end of the course. Managing a project typically includes identifying requirements. So what do we require? Addressing needs, concerns, expectations of your stakeholder, you know, as the project is planned and is being carried out. Balancing competing project constraints. Constraints are anything that, you know, if something changes, any factor that if something changes about it, you know, it could skew the whole project. It could throw the project off balance. For instance, if the scope of a project was increased, you know, from what it was, you know, it's going to cost more funds. You will need more money to execute. You may need more time. You may need more resources, and so on. So as a project manager, your task is to balance, you know, these constraints with the tools and techniques we'll talk about, you know, inside of the course. Then quality as well can also be a constraint. Your schedule, if it was shortened, for instance, it's going to also skew, you know, the rest of the project. Your budget, if it was cut by 50%, is going to skew the project. Resources, if they were removed, you know, and you just have maybe 5 as against 10, is also going to impact the project. If a lot of risks is being introduced, that would also affect. So the relationship among these factors is such that if one factor changes, you know, the other factors will also be affected. So you have here, it's called an iron triangle, you know, and all of these constraints in here, you know, the arrows depicting that if anything changes, it's going to change, you know, a whole lot on your project. So relationships among project management, program management, portfolio management. In big organizations, in mature organizations, that's how project management is classified. You will not just see a project manager alone, you will see a program manager. You could also see a portfolio manager. Most NGOs, you know, they follow this pattern. Sometimes you see them talk about their malaria projects, you know, or their AIDS projects, and so on. Or you could hear them talk about a healthcare portfolio manager, and so on. So we're going to look at what all of these mean, and, you know, what it means for you while managing your projects, the big picture. So organizational strategies and priorities are linked, and they have relationships between portfolios, programs, and individual projects. So let's look at portfolio management as the first one. So what's the portfolio? I liken portfolios, you know, to when you have a grandfather that has a father and a son, you know, so that's just a simple, like a family tree, you know, that main person that begets, you know, the others. So a portfolio refers to collections of projects or programs and any other work grouped together to facilitate effective management of that work to meet strategic business objectives. So basically, you know, you want to manage or group them together so that you get good benefits out of them. Portfolio management refers to centralized management of one or more portfolios. where you identify, prioritize, authorize, manage, and control projects, programs, and related work. Portfolio management focuses on ensuring that projects and programs, you review them to prioritize resource allocation, and that management of your portfolio is consistent with and then aligned to, organizational strategies. So this table here, it's a little bit small. Let me see if I can increase that. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so that's good. I wasn't in the slide share mode. So let's look at this quickly. We're trying to compare projects, programs, and portfolios based on these objectives: scope, change, planning, management, success, monitoring. For projects in scope, they have defined objectives. You know what you're supposed to do. Scope is progressively elaborated throughout the project lifecycle. For programs, they have a larger scope. We've not talked about programs yet. We'll do on the other slide. They have a larger scope, and provide more significant benefits. For portfolios, they have a business scope, because we said they are collections of projects and programs, and the scope changes with the strategic goals of the organization. For change, project managers expect change, and then they implement processes to keep change managed and controlled. For programs, they expect change from both inside and outside of the program, and they must be prepared to manage it. For portfolios, they monitor change in the broader environment. Remember, a portfolio manager is like a CEO, the big picture people. Then planning, project managers progressively elaborate high-level information, into detailed plans throughout the project lifecycle. That means a project sponsor can just tell you, this is the project. You now go back to the drawing board with your team members, and so on, and you're able to, actually start fleshing out that high-level information into your detailed plan. Then you have your program managers. They develop the overall program plan, and they create high-level plans to guide detailed planning at the component level. Portfolio managers create and maintain necessary processes and communication relative to the aggregate portfolio. For management, project managers manage their team, to make sure they meet project objectives. Then for programs, program managers manage the program staff, and then project managers, they provide vision and overall leadership. For portfolio managers, they may manage or coordinate portfolio management staff. So for programs now, project managers report to program managers. For portfolios, program managers may report to, portfolio managers alongside the portfolio management staff. Success on projects is measured by product and project quality, timelines. Did you comply with the budget? Was the customer satisfied? For programs, success is measured by the degree to which the program satisfies needs and benefits for which it was undertaken. Then for portfolios, success is measured in terms of aggregate performance of your portfolio components. Then monitoring, project managers monitor and control the work of producing, the products, the services, the results. Program managers monitor progress of program components to ensure overall goals, the schedule, the budget, the benefits are met. Now, let me just chip in that for programs, there are collections of similar projects. We'll learn more as we move on. Portfolio managers manage aggregate performance and value indicators. So what's a program? We said earlier, it's defined as a group of related projects. Why are we managing them together? To get the benefits and control that we would not get, when we manage them individually. A project may not be part of a program, but a program would always have projects. I hope that is clear, because a project may not be similar, so it may not be part of the program. But a program would always have projects. Now, an example of a program could be building a new university. It could be building a mega hospital, you know, and so on. And did I lose you? Okay. So we will just continue because we are recording. Okay. So let me share the screen again. Okay. In case I lose you at any point, you could, so that I can know, you could just, you know, put a chat across in the chat box here. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I would continue and try to minimize this. So like we said, you know, projects are collections of similar related projects, you know, they are managed as programs and so on, because you want to acquire benefit and control that you would not get when you manage them, you know, separately. So project strategic planning and business need. Projects are often utilized as a means of achieving an organization's strategic plan. They are typically authorized as a result of one or more of the following strategic considerations. You know, sometimes these projects come because of market demand. You know, maybe a car company authorizing a project to build more fuel efficient cars in response to gasoline shortages, maybe fuel shortages. People now want to, you know, drive cars that are, you know, less expensive in the area of consuming fuel. So maybe a Toyota could say, okay, let's create a project, you know, that could actually save the burn rate of the fuel. Then you have strategic opportunities and business need. A training company may be creating a new course to increase its revenue because maybe people are looking for that particular type of service. Then customer requests, you know, sometimes customers, you know, you could get a clue on the next project because of what they keep requesting for. You know, in the former time, people used to drag their monitors, their CPU along with them, but that is no more because, you now have faster, cheaper laptops that people can, you know, with a lot of memory that people can actually use even on the go. You know, phones are becoming smart. Why did all this happen? Because people were requesting, you know, for it. Then legal requirements, projects can come up because of, you know, maybe someone somewhere wants to, you to carry out a specific project to bring out guidelines, you know, and so on. So that could be, you know, the reason for a project to come into place. So projects within programs or portfolios are a means of achieving organizational goals and objectives, you know, often in the context of the strategic plan. So a group of projects within a program can have discrete benefits. They can also contribute to the benefits of the program, to the objectives of the portfolio, to the strategic plan of the organization. So projects are so important and you can manage them in silos of programs or portfolios. Then another reason for projects is the business need. You know, we call it the bottom line. You want to add value to the company in terms of something tangible like monetary value or something intangible like brand recognition. You know, that's why you find Coca-Cola, you find, you know, some known brands. Each time they still keep creating new projects, you know, to keep top of mind, to collect their market share. Yes. So those projects increase their bottom line. Then the external reason for projects, that's the strategic plan, and the internal reason for the project, the business need, are essential. So for project managers, you must understand this, before you even initiate the project. The business need, the strategic plan, description of the product scope, what the product is designed to do. Together they make up what we call the statement of work, and we consider this the seed of the project. When you tie this up, you have the business case. Most times you hear people talk about the business case. If the business case is not right, you don't want to go into a project, except it's an NGO. If the business case will bring back monetary value, brand recognition, then go ahead. So the business case comprises of your product scope description in that funnel, your business need, and then your strategic plan. So all of these three, when you tie them together, you have a business case. And you must find out what your business case is, what the strategic plans are, the business need, what are they for, so that you can actually execute the project accordingly. Then we go to a very interesting concept. We call it the Project Management Office. We also we have an acronym for it. It's called the PMO. So it's an organizational body, that manages basically every project under its domain. So it's a centralized body, or, an office in an organization that manages every single project. Now, why are we doing that? So that you can have, the project can be visible. You can actually know what is happening on project number 40, project number 50, and so on. So the responsibilities of a PMO, they are far and wide, but basically let's talk about the types. Sometimes PMOs can be controlling, they can have complete control. Sometimes they could just be influencers for projects, and so on. So you can note that we have three types of PMOs: supportive PMOs. Supportive PMOs provide a consultative role to projects by supplying templates, best practices, access to information, lessons learned from other projects, etc. So the degree of control of the supportive PMO is very low. Controlling PMOs, they provide support, they require compliance through various means. They want you to adopt their methodologies like we talked about earlier. They want you to use specific templates, specific forms, specific tool. They want you to conform to governance. So the degree of control here is moderate. Then you have the directive PMOs. These ones take control of the project by directly managing the project. Degree of control here is high. So the PMO basically supports project managers, helps them manage shared resources across all projects administered by the PMO, help them identify and develop their methodologies, their best practice, their standards. The PMO can also coach, mentor, train, and also perform oversight functions. How does it do that? It helps monitor compliance. Are they complying with the templates we gave them, with the methodologies, with the policies, with procedures, with standards, through project audits? Then PMOs also help develop project policies and all of those documents we talked about earlier. They help coordinate communication across projects. So the difference between a project manager and a PMO: the project manager focuses on the specified project objectives. His own is, let me just make sure that, I deliver on project objectives, while the PMO manager manages scope changes, that could threaten the project. He manages them, he makes sure that it's aligned, and so on. The project manager controls assigned resources so that they can meet project objectives. The PMO optimizes usage of those resources across all projects. Optimization of resources basically mean you don't want idle time, so much idle time on a particular, maybe project number 3. Meanwhile, people on project number 40, are being overworked. So you want to share resources, optimize usage. The project manager manages constraints like we talked about earlier. The PMO is a big picture office. It manages methodology, standards, risks, and so on. Then this is a difference, between project management and operations management. Sometimes people think the two are the same, but they are not the same. Projects usually are temporary. They have a start and end time. Operations, ongoing, repetitive. Even a robot, if taught very well, could carry out an operational work like we see with the ATM machine, and then for projects, they create unique products, services, or results, or even an improvement in an existing product or service. For operations, they create repetitive products, mass production, or services. So what's the similarity between projects and operational work? Projects and operations are performed by individuals. They still have their constraints. They can be planned, executed, monitored, and controlled. They can be performed to achieve organizational objectives or strategic plans. So both can be used, together. Then the role of a project manager. What does the project manager do? The project manager is assigned by the performing organization to achieve the project objectives. This role involves communication with all others and integrating activities of so many people, stakeholders, and so on. So the project manager leads the team in planning the project, manages constraints like we mentioned earlier, communicates project status as it evolves. That means, you spend like 90% of the time communicating as a project manager. You manage change, you manage stakeholder expectations, you're responsible for delivering the project objectives. That means you're held responsible if objectives are not met. Then basically, project managers must have knowledge. I don't want to go through all of that. We've talked about a bit of that before. Knowledge, they must be able to perform, they must have good interpersonal skills. Knowledge, what type of knowledge? Project management knowledge. Performance, they must apply that knowledge to project tasks. Personal, effectiveness, like personal or people-facing skills. They must be leaders, you must be motivated, and so on, as we would see on this page. You need several interpersonal skills because you're working with diverse people from different ethnicities, people from different walks of life. So you must know how to manage them. Interpersonal skills like leadership, team building, motivation, communication, influencing. You must be able to influence your team. You must be able to make quick decisions. You must be politically and culturally aware. Know what plays out in the organizations you're working in. If it's not your internal organization, then you must be able to negotiate, because you would have to negotiate contracts if it's in your power to do that, and so on. So the project body, a management body of knowledge we introduced earlier, is a formal document that establishes norms, methods, processes, and practices in project management. So it's the standard for managing most projects, most of the time across many types of industries. But that doesn't mean the project manager shouldn't have domain knowledge. If, for instance, if you're a construction project manager, you must, either have civil engineering information or architectural, whatever, but you must have domain knowledge to manage your team members better. Then the PMBOK guide describes the project management processes, tools, and techniques, that are used to manage a project towards a successful outcome or output. So the project management body of knowledge adopts a process-based approach to the management of projects. Processes, we divide them into inputs, tools, techniques, and then outputs. So PMI also has, other standards apart from the PMBOK, but the scope of the PMP exam is the PMBOK. They have standard for program management, addressing management of programs, standard for portfolio management, addressing management of portfolios. Then you have organizational project management maturity model, looking at the enterprise, how the enterprise manages their projects, using all those project management tools, and so on and so forth. Okay, then we have 10 knowledge areas. Sorry, let me go back. 10 knowledge areas. We have integration management, scope management, time, cost, quality, human resource management, communication management, risks, procurement, stakeholders. So basically 10 knowledge areas will be dealt with, all through the class. Then, like we said earlier, we have 47 processes in these 10 knowledge areas, from develop project charter down to close procurement, close project or phase. 47 processes we'll be talking about, as we hit the road, with the class. Then we also need to understand enterprise environmental factors. What do we mean by enterprise environmental factors? Any factors, both internal or external, that surround or influence the success of your project. So these factors may come from any or all of the enterprises involved, in the project. They are considered as inputs to most planning processes. So most times when you hear us talk about maybe scope management, inputs to maybe plan scope management, you hear us talk about enterprise environmental factors. Any factor that surrounds how successful your project is eventually. You have organizational culture, structure and processes, the standards, the government or industry standards, infrastructure on ground, existing human resource, what kind of skills do they have, and so on. Personnel administration, how do you want to staff and retain your people? Company work authorization systems, marketplace conditions, stakeholder risk tolerances, political climate, organizations, established communication channels, commercial databases, they could influence how projects are actually being done, in your organization. For instance, if there is war in a particular country, they won't be talking about projects, basically. It will affect anything, they are doing at the moment. Then you have the organizational process assets. Assets are anything that, add value, guide you, and so on. So we have formal and informal company policies, procedures, plans, guidelines, and so on. It includes organizations learning and knowledge from previous projects. We have two categories: company processes and procedures for conducting work, policies and procedures like health, safety policies, and so on. Guidelines, work instructions, templates could be assets. Communication requirements could be assets so that the workflow, what is going on the project. Financial controls procedures so that how monies are being spent. Change control procedures so that if someone needs to make a change, there is a process, that it passes through. Then you have company corporate knowledge base for storing and retrieving information. Some organizations have, silos of information that people can, maybe you're new in the organization or even current staff, you can go in there and get information and you're able to work. Project files and filing are assets. Historical information, lessons learned, they are also assets. Configuration management data, they are assets. Databases, financial data, they are all assets to the organization. So that's the project management framework in a nutshell. I hope you were able to pick one or two things, out of the class. I think that is where it ends for now, but we would continue with questions, once I'm done with the questions we have there. So that's again our bonus for attending the class. We're giving a discounted online live class at $100, and you can get a 5% discount, on those dates. So again, let's look at some questions. Marketplace conditions, they are a part of what? From what we talked about, they are a part of the enterprise environmental factors. If there is inflation, it's going to affect, how the projects are run. In which phase of a project do you define the final deliverable? Someone could say initiation, but then you may not know so much. The best answer at the point of initiation. So the best answer is closing. So your final deliverable, you've created it, you can give it to the client, and so on. Okay, so there we go. I would stop sharing the slides for a bit, or I can unmute you for a bit, and then we take some questions, but let me end the recording.